30-year fixed mortgage rates hitting their highest level since last July. Later this morning, the House is going to debate an amended bipartisan housing bill. It's scheduled for a vote tomorrow. President Trump has been urging the House to pass the Senate's version of the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. Joining us now, Financial Services Committee Chairman, Congressman French Hill. Congressman, always good to see you, Mr. Chairman of the Financial Services Committee. Is this something that we can definitely say, and I'm talking about some of the provisions, does it make sense to you to disallow corporate ownership? Because there's been arguments from free marketers at the Wall Street Journal that it makes no sense to do it this way.
Well, good morning, Joe. President Trump, in his State of the Union, made clear that he thought that over the years there'd been a real challenge with two moms and dads trying to go out and buy a house for cash and finding out that they were competing through their realtor with some big institutional investor. I think that's a small number of houses across the country, but it is an issue, and people have raised it to the vice president and president, so it was in the State of the Union address. And I told the president we ought to be able to find a way to put some limitation on that without disrupting capital flows into housing. That's the key component, because institutional investors provide a lot of capital to capital flows, both in single family construction as well as in build to rent, senior housing, and the like. So we wanted to try to find a way to meet the president's objective without disrupting capital flows into the residential real estate business. And I'm fearful that the text that was in the original Senate bill that they passed does not do that. It had this required sale of any new constructed homes to be sold within 7 years if they were built by an institutional investor. And I think that mandate is something that people in the House on both sides of the aisle can't support. So one of our key amendments is to take that mandated sale out of the Senate provision.
I mean, I can think of, you need so many workarounds to make this make sense that the benefits in the first place almost look like the small benefit you're getting from this. The things you need to do workarounds for outweigh the small benefit. I'm talking about, institutional owners. They're able to renovate properties at scale. They got the money to be able to do that. Liquidity in distressed markets. Corporate landlords increase the supply of professionally managed units for rent, so that this is going to hurt the rental market. There's so many good things that happen from it. To find the reasons or rationale for doing it, it's buried somewhere in all these positives that come from it. And I know the president a lot of times has, he's competing against some of the most populist ideas in the world. We've got a mayor here named Mamdani. We got the most populist ideas in the world are suddenly gaining traction, like we need to try them again. So I understand that we're forced to do that, but in your heart of hearts, do you think this is a smart move?
Well, as I said to the president, I said this is a tough issue to do. We understand your well-intentioned meaning, but it is tough to craft it and have the exemptions to it that still facilitate capital flowing into residential real estate. Back in the 2008 financial crisis, I can remember many banks, including my own bank, that had really hundreds of unfinished houses that buyers had walked away from, and how great it would have been to have an institutional buyer to come in and help clean up some of that troubled credit, for example. So we know that both in the troubled markets and in growing markets like build to rent, that institutional investors provide a lot of that capital. We've tried to make changes in the Senate bill and our proposed amendments that ameliorate some of those concerns and take out certainly the most concerning, which is a mandated sale, which Paul Clement, the former Solicitor General to the United States, says to him appears unconstitutional, that it's a taking, mandating a 7-year sale on newly constructed, say, build to rent, for example. So that's a concern, and we've tried to address it in our House amendments.
Mr. Chairman, while I got you, can I ask you about all these, the news in recent sessions about all the stock trades that the president, whether it's him or I guess it's someone on his behalf, has made? I mean, staggering numbers. And he's, I guess, exempt from the conflict of interest that everybody else is subject to. So I think he's allowed, but it not typically done. It hasn't been done by presidents in the past. Do you know who the third party is? Is it in a blind trust? I know that there was some conjecture that maybe Eric and Don Jr. were involved, but I think Eric said to imply that is beyond the pale, be better. That's not what's happening. They make no decisions on any of these trades. But the number of trades that we saw in a lot of stocks that are influenced by some of the things that the president has done, it just doesn't smell good, doesn't look good, does it?
Well, I know the president's been very critical of members of Congress
right.
in trying to manage their own stock portfolios, for example. I don't know the particulars in his case, but I did work in the executive branch, and I know the Office of Government Ethics does have strict requirements for holding of positions and disposal of positions and who manages those positions in a third-party context when you're in the executive branch. And I believe that the vice president and the president still have to comply with the Office of Government Ethics in terms of who manages their investments and what investments they might have to dispose of. So I'll have to defer the answer to your question because I don't know enough about it. But I know that here in the House, we have to report all trades, and we have an annual reporting. And Brian Stile, the chairman of our administration committee, is working to find some additional limitations and additional disclosure connected to individual stock names for members.
Well, at 58 trades a day, I can tell you, all I wish, I was a broker at Merrill Lynch. That'd be a great account if you were doing, especially in the old days, if it wasn't a wrap fee, if you were getting commissions. That's a lot of trading. So you're willing to, you think that the benefit of the doubt should go to the president at this point in terms of whether.
Well, I think the benefit of the doubt should go to the Office of Government Ethics on what rules and parameters they set up for the president and the vice president.
Okay.
Yeah. Chairman, the only sort of public policy question I have about all of this, and it's really for just the integrity of Congress, the White House, and everything else, is what you think the best policy should be. Meaning, do you think a blind trust does it for you? In this case, I don't think it was one, but should it be that you can buy or sell once or twice a year at a specified time? I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this. What do you think is the perfected version of this? Barring the idea that you can't trade at all, which, by the way, there's a lot of people in the country who think that Congress and the White House shouldn't be able to trade, just own mutual funds and things like that.
Well, the House proposal is something similar to that, which is you can hold mutual funds and you can hold exchange-traded funds, but you cannot trade individual stock names, is the proposal that's before a House committee now for the reasons that you outline. But people come to Congress and they come to the presidency, obviously, with various investments in real estate and operating businesses and stocks. And so that's why in the executive branch, those are looked at with a fine-tooth comb. And cabinet members and others are required to divest certain positions that are a clear conflict of their particular job. Or in some instances, they are allowed to use a blind trust. I think the main issue here is disclosure and fair rules that are transparent so that the American people know what the facts are in the executive branch and the legislative branch. Secondly, let's remind all your viewers that insider trading is illegal. Whether you're a member of Congress or in the executive branch or not, period, full stop. And all the ethics rules on the House and Senate and in the White House and the cabinet are exactly to add burden to that, add disclosure, add transparency to something that's obviously already true, which is any use of personal inside information to trade stocks is illegal.